Hello children, in the previous video we have discussed about the causes because of which the French Revolution has broke out, and in this video we will try to understand the later segment of the chapter, that is of French Revolution. So let us see. As I told you that the conditions of the French, uh, it was so full of chaos and confusion. There was lots of up and downs. If you see all the administrative system, social structure, political conditions, and the economical conditions, if you see, there were lots of up and downs. There were no similarities. There were no equality. You can see in all these different aspects, and ultimately what happened, that causes for the broke out of the revolution in the French to brought certain changes. So series of things or developments we have seen that had taken place in the history of French in our previous discussions or previous video. Here let us try to understand this later part of the chapter, as we have uh, concluded our previous video with the note, that is 1793 to 1794, which was regarded as the reign of terror in the history of French. And this period was the rule of Jacobins under the command of Maximilian Robespierre. So his system of governance was such tough, it was so full of harsh, that the leaders or the members from his own party, they started to talk about certain moderations. It means the system of governance that Jacobins were carrying forward, or they were uh, carrying on, it was not liked by not only the common citizens of the French or common people of the French, but their own party member did not like. So those whoever were speaking against the Jacobins and their system of governance, they were sent to guillotine. The practice, or the guillotine is a practice by which the people were assassinated. And such assassination was just if somebody were criticizing the rule of Jacobins. So such harsh policy which was followed by the Jacobins was not liked by the French people and its own party member, and ultimately what happened, Jacobins fall from their power. There was a no people make a mood that they did not going to accept, or they did not going to allow to last the Jacobins rule in the French. So when Maximilian Robespierre was sent to guillotine, and after that we can see one new power which arise in the French, that is the wealthier middle class. They rose in power, and the immediately when they rose in the power and the administrative system of the French come under their control, they drafted a new constitution. And as per that new constitution, they denied to give voting rights to all the people living in the society. Now once again, the voting rights were limited to all the property persons. It means those who are not wealthier section of the society, and they were not allowed to participate in the voting system. But certain good aspect we can see here. We cannot say that good aspect, but if you compare the directory rule in French compared to the Jacobins, then some sorts of moderation we can see here. Like Jacobins, they the system of administration and its power was concentrated in the hand of single person, and gaining experience from that system of governance, here in the directory rule, let the power should not remain concentrated in the hand of single persons. What they did, they elected a council, and these councils were two or in numbers. So the power is equally distributed among the councils. The reasons for doing so, so that let the power should not be misused, and let it should not be concentrated in the hand of one. But on the certain occasion, it has seen that there was a conflict and the opinion differences among the council itself, and they were indulging in the conflict. They get entangled in the conflict among themselves. Such conflict causes for the political instability in the French, and such political instability paved the way for the Napoleon to rise in the power in the later part of the history that we will discuss. So if it is like that, let us try to also understand the women, their role, and the conditions. The women play a very pivotal role in shaping the history of French that we cannot ignore. As we discussed in the previous video, that when the men were engaged themselves in the Revolutionary War, at that time the women play very pivotal role and they look after the livelihood of their family. Not only that, they started to work as a laborers in the factories, as a factory workers, and this helped to safeguard the economy system of the country. This is the contribution of the woman. But another side, if you see that in compared to the male, the female were seems like rejected in the French society. Why? They were kept giving the status of passive citizens, and as we know that the passive citizens, they have no voting right, they live very limited, they live with the very limited rights. So if you see the French society and compare the women with the male sections of the society, then you find that right, liberties, opportunities, no, these are remain very limited to the female section. Not only that, if you see in their personal life also, like procuring educations and in taking decision in matrimonial relations, such rights were also not given freely to all the sections of the women living in the society. Let us take some example. Let us take the example of education. Do you know, in the French, during those period of time, the women from all the different sections of the society were not allowed to procure education. Only those women who belong to the nobility and the clergy, they had right to access or procure the education, and rest of the women were not having this right. In case of matrimonial relation also, the women do not have their independent or liberty to choose their life partner, or if they had any kind of problems, the domestic problems, in such case also they have no right to claim for divorce or getting separated from the male. So in that way, we can see in the history of French, the condition of women was not seen much healthier or better. As a result, demanding a better environment, demanding us equal rights, liberties, freedom, opportunities, and the educations, the women also started to fight. They started to demand similar right as the state is giving to the male section of the society. And to fulfill this demand, they formed some association. These associations are the Society of Revolution and the Republican Woman. The main purpose and objectives of these societies was to granted a similar kind of uh, rights, liberties, and the opportunities what male in the society of French were enjoying. But it was in the later part, though these societies were formed and they were keep on shouting, they were keep on protesting, they were keep on demanding to uplift the condition of women and to give them an equal status in the society. Even then, certain rights such as the voting rights, it reached to the women of the French very late. You will be shocked to know that the French Revolution, which start from the 14th July 1789, and the French women, they got a voting right in the year 1946. By this you can just assimilate, or you can assume under what conditions the women were living in the French, what sorts of facilities or the opportunities or the liberties were given to them. With this small note we can calculate. So this was the condition of the woman in the French. And another, along with that, the there was a practice of self trade, or if you see, it was the French who sought it to abolish the slave trade the very beginning. Let us try to know that's how the self trade that comes in practice within the European nations. The self trade was flourished in the triangular met of Europe, Africa, and America in the 17th century. And why this slave trade was in it got provoked, it has certain reasons. If you see, in those period of time, many of the European nations who had their colonies in different part of the world, they were doing different farm activities, and to do work in that farm they need workers. And most of the people of Britain, French, they were not willing to go far away from their native for the work. In such a case, what happened? The self trade or self trade was practiced. And there are certain places near the Caribbean. These are called Martinique, these are called Guadeloupe, and the San Domingo. These were some of the important places where the production of tobacco, indigo, sugar, and the coffee was done. It was the supplier of these commodities in those period of time. And to do agriculture's work or the production work, the workers or the laborers were needed. And to meet the demand of that workers and the laborers, the self trade get in practiced. Do you know, in the 18th century opposed the slavery? It means in 1794 it was the French which abolished the slave trade or slavery. But when Napoleon come in power, again he started to he bring back that practice of slavery, and finally the slavery was abolished in the year 1848. Now the things were going in this way, as we have seen in the previous slide. If you see here, the directory rule, and again then the women's, their conditions, the role they play, and the right and liberties access to them, and the celebrity, how it's get initiated, from where it get initiated, what was the reason for such initiations, when it was opposed for the first time, and when it was completely came to an end. And later, if you see the revolution and everyday life, so see, there are so many factors which collectively bring large number of the people to stand against the system of governance or the administration. In such conditions, do you remember about the timeline we have prepared? Yes, if you remember, then you may be knowing that 1789, it was an important year, because in this particular year 1789, the Declaration of Men Rights proclaimed. It means the certain rights which were supposed to give to these people living in the French, such declaration were adopted. Do you know the declaration of the men's right proclamation included so many things, right? Freedom of speech, expressions, and equality, liberty. This all declared as what? The natural rights. Not only that, as per the Declaration of Men's Right, which was adopted in the year 1789, it removed the censorship which was imposed on the various media houses. Now, these all happenings had given a new way of life to the people. Now people started to talk about the system of governance. They started to talk about the advantages and disadvantages. They started to criticize. In that way, the French society is getting its new shape. But after the declaration of 1789, when things were keep on going, but another aspect, if you see, there was a continuous political instability prevails. Political instability prevails. And that political instability gave an opportunity to the Napoleon to rise in the power. Napoleon rose in the power in the year 1799, and he ruled the French till 1815. Napoleon rule was discussed in the history of French with full of critics in both the aspect. Some found it as a better, some noted with a series of problems. Hence, he was often considered as a problematic figure in French. Some of his thing which make his system of governance as good. Do you remember what you have something about? Do you know something about the Napoleonic Code or Civil Code? Some of the good things that Napoleon has brought in his system of administration were as like that. He abolished the feudal system. It means he ended the class divisions. Do you remember what we have discussed about the feudal system? Means some group of the people living in the society, they have a control over the resources of the nations. So he ended that. He abolished the serfdom. Now what is serfdom? It means forced and bonded labor was completely abolished by Napoleon. He also did many things to improve the transportation and communication system and established a very good connectivity with the countryside and the town and its all the neighboring countries. He abolished the trade barriers and introduced a uniform weight and measures. Today, what measures and weight you are using, these all are introduced by Napoleon. He introduced uniform law and removed the privilege by birth. Now, when Napoleon rose in power in the French, the uniform law were introduced. There was no privileges given to any persons based on their um, the birth. So these were some of the points which we can see from the French perspectives and in the system of governance that was given by the Napoleon, which make him as a good, and these points made many people to support the Napoleon. But he had executed or implemented many things which also made him opposed. So some of the things which Napoleon has brought in his system of administration and that was opposed by the people of the French were they imposed the censorship. Means like the Jacobins, like the Louis XVI, he also did not allow to criticize his system of governance by anyone. Now all the media houses, in whatever form it was in those days, they were not free, they were not allowed to criticize his system of governance. He was not found much good in his thought for the women section of the society, as the women's right, including the voting and property right, was taken back when French was ascended by the Napoleon Bonaparte. Force recruitment was done in the army to expand the French army, as Napoleon wanted to establish his rule confirmably strong in the French and all its neighboring states. As a reason, he started to expand his army. And to make his army capable and strong, the force recruitments were done. They increases the taxes to expand the army, and to maintain the army and to expand the army, the tax were imposed. So these were some of the points by which we can see, and we can try to assume, we are in no position to call whether Napoleon as a democratic ruler or he as completely a monarch. Somewhere the rule of Napoleon in the French is seen like a mixture of both the ideas, but where the rights, the liberties, and the opportunities of the people are snatched away, no matter what sorts of administration the government or the ruler was giving to its subject, cannot be called as a democratic. So in this way, we can say the French history has come with the lots of up and downs, but finally, after the fall of the Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo, the French and its history was changed. Do you know, in the 1850, there were some countries who collectively fought against the Napoleon. So I have used this word the perv, which is not correct, but just for your understanding, I have made it as a perv, where P stand for Persia, R stand for Russia, A stand for Austria, and B stand for Britain. If you see, this word as per the abbreviation is not correct, but for our understanding I have used this word, that is perv. P stand for Persia, R stand for Russia, A stand for Austria, and B stand for Britain. All these nations, they collectively fought against the Napoleon, and in the Battle of Waterloo in the year 1815, the Napoleon rule was come to an end. And afterwards, what happened? What happened to the French then? To negotiate how the French and its different part will be divided among these nations, they sat in the Vienna and they signed a treaty which is came to be known as the Treaty of Vienna. And in this way, signing the Treaty of Vienna, the French uh, division has lead forward. This chapter discuss up to here, and later on what happened with this French and what sorts of governance as we can see in the French, that you will discuss in the class 10 chapter, that is called the nationalism and Europe. So this is the end, the chapter discussed up to here, that is the rise and fall of the Napoleon. So I hope that whatever we have discussed you have understand. Now keep on learning and stay safe, stay healthy. Before I could wind up, I just want you to assign a small work. You can read this chapter and try to find out all those words which are written in bold and italics letter. You collect that words in your notebook and try to understand this. Watch very carefully all the different boxes, small boxes which you find in the blue, green and yellow color. and read that very carefully. And assignment for you is what? You write all the words meaning which were there in the textbook in the chapter of this particular chapter, just written in the bold and italic letters. So this is all. Thank you very much. Keep on learning. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Bye. Thank you.